There we go. I see. I mean,
are you single, Christopher? Because Teresa is.
No, I'm married quite a lot.
There is no God. You're right.
So, yes, Christopher Hitchens on the phone, by the way.
Smart
God is
man.
Not Great. #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. I have, everyone knows my feelings, which is, when I hear about Palestinians and I hear about Jews, and, my first thing is I always take the side of the Jews because I don't feel like they're pushing the fight. On the other hand, ultimately, if they just drop their nonsense, they could move on, too. I would like to live in a society where this didn't factor in. I'm not talking about one where people didn't have faith and love toward their brother man and all the good stuff and all the 10 Commands and all that, but where it didn't factor into decisions. What's that?
No, you can't want all of the 10. You haven't looked at them lately.
Well, not all of them, but the point is where the government didn't factor it in. I would love to have everyone just drop the religion and get on with the religion of science and happiness.
Yeah,
I would love that.
That'd be nice, but I don't think
that's not going to happen.
I don't think a godless world would be less violent.
The beauties of science.
I think it might be.
The beauties of science, which are extraordinary. Look at the double helix, or take a look through the Hubble telescope. It's a lot more beautiful than anything in the Bible or the burning bush or something like that. The constellations of philosophy and all the ethical dilemmas that you can study by appreciating literature, which
Christopher,
is where they really occur.
Let's put that question to you. If you could snap your fingers and all of a sudden there was no religion, do you think the world overall would be a better place or a less violent place, or would it be worse? Would we just spin into chaos?
Well, it sounds too much like John Lennon to say imagine no religion, but let's say that religion had become a private matter for people. It wasn't imposed publicly, and there were no attempt to impose on other people. We'll take the case you just mentioned. For a long, long time, there have been two nationalities, two nations, two peoples in Palestine. And for a long time, it's been very obvious what the answer should be, that there could be a two-state solution, half each, if you like.
Right.
Most Jews are in favor of that. The PLO officially is in favor of it. The United Nations resolutions, the international community, all in favor of it. Why can't you get such a simple thing? Because the religious nutbags on both sides are strong enough to veto it.
Right.
The settlers say, no, God gave us all of this land. He gave all to the Jews, and the Islamists say, you're right that God gave the land, it's just you're wrong about who he gave it to. He gave it to us, and there should be no Jews here. And just as if that wasn't good enough to help out, come the American Christians saying, look, Armageddon is coming, and then that'll bring on the Messiah.
Right.
And the Jews say, well, what a coincidence, we sort of believe that too. And the Christian right says, well, except for the fact that all the Jews are going to have to either be converted or die, we're with you.
By the way, this doesn't start sounding like nonsense to everybody eventually.
Yeah, but you're talking about extremists in all of these cases.
Right. I'm Christopher Hitchens. We have to pray to our commercial gods, but
yes, we do. That's why I drove here in a Nissan and not some other kind of car.
Could you just sing a little Bowie for us, Christopher? You know it.
You love it.
Just try to remember my favorite one.
John, I'm Only Dancing.
Is it off of Hunky Dory?
We could be heroes just for one day. I just can't remember how it starts.
It's a great song. One of my heroes.
Christopher Hitchens, God bless you. God is Not Great, name of his book. Brian going nuts over there with the Bowie songs. Listen, let's have him back tomorrow as Bowie.
Yeah.
I think if he was right and his book was just called, because there's no God, his book was just called Is Not Great, it probably wouldn't be such a runaway bestseller. He needs God to make that money.
Well, but you could write a book about a serial killer. Wouldn't make you a fan of the serial killer.
I don't think he's a fan. I just think he needs God and somebody's belief in God to make that money. He needs Christians, Muslims. He needs them all to make a buck. He's not going to have a runaway bestseller by people who agree with him.
No, I know what you're saying, but I don't know. I still think it sounds like a point, but I don't know that it is. I mean,
I do that a lot.
It sounds right, but on another point, I don't know if he can be.
I don't mean that he
faulted for that.
I don't think he's faulted at all. I'm saying without the faith of other Christians, Muslims, and Jews, he doesn't have a book there. I'm not saying that he is professing anything that's untrue in his heart and soul.
Right.
But our belief in
without
God,
World War II, there's no Saving Private Ryan. I mean, It is true. It's a true statement, but I don't know if it means anything. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
It sounds like it means something, but I'm not sure what the point is. I'm not sure if it means anything, really.
Why don't you go get your shine box?
I'm fairly confident what I mean by it. I don't mean he believes anything different than what he says. I think he's 100% legitimate.
I get that point.
But he needs the people who have the faith to be shaken and to be afraid of this book.
If people weren't so invested in the concept of God, they wouldn't care about a book saying God is not great.
So the point has nothing to do with him and his belief.
Okay.
That's the difference. I'm not saying World War II didn't exist, therefore Private Ryan is crap. Mm-hmm. I'm saying they're two separate animals that need each other.
I'm wondering if religion is, if there was a graph or a chart, I wonder if it's on the decline or the increase.
In America, it's on the increase.
It's increased over
here. It
here.
has been for the last 8-10 years. It's been on the increase.
Yeah.
Scary.
Well, he did stipulate to my point, and it's not my point, there are large-scale studies that people who are part of religious communities, not these fundamental wacky ones, but basic, people go to church, they're happier.
Yeah, and then he said he might go out with you, and then you condemned God.
Yeah. Oh, look.
I don't get to talk to you anymore.
There's no doubt. I mean, I've said it many times in my life. I would pay... people do that thing where how much would you pay if you could become invisible?
Yeah.
Or you could fly?
Yeah.
Or you could be 5 inches taller, or your biceps could be, or your hips could be. People sort of go through that hypothetical all the time. Yeah. I would pay the most to have a religion.
Yeah.
But a true belief.
Right. I know. I think about this all the time. I mean, I pray, I talk to God, I go to temple, I'm part of a religious community, but if you hooked me up to a lie detector, yes. If you hooked me up to a lie detector and asked me if I believed in God, I would fail.
Right.
It doesn't matter.
Because you're too strong and intellectual to go for that nonsense.
But I want to.
I want to too, and I would pay. Look, being invisible would be great for a while. You get to go to the locker room over 24-hour fitness and just camp out in the ladies' side, and then you get to hear what people really thought about you when they didn't know you were in the room. But that stuff would get old after a couple of, make it 25 years. Yeah. Because there's Bally's, there's a lot of other health clubs I got to get to. And don't get me started on the local high schools. All right, the point is after about 25 to 50 years, 50 to 75 years, I would definitely burn out on that.
Plus, I got to be able to fly, because I got to get from one gym to the other.
I'm going to tell you this. You hook up Rabbi Wiener to the lie detector, I think he fails.
Oh, all the Jews would fail. They would. They're too smart to breed. They're really too smart to breed for that. But if you would give me something that knew that if one of my kids ever got an illness, I could take comfort in knowing that if something horrible happened to me or somebody else, if I was in a situation, if I found out I had a brain tumor and it's inoperable, that I could, that thing where, I love my kids so much it hurts. And if anything ever happened to one of them, the greatest gift you could ever give me was knowing that we would be reunited one day in a place called heaven. That would be worth millions and millions of dollars to me. That'd be worth, I would give everything away and start over for it. I want it so badly. The problem is just like T's tried to discover over there at Temple every other Saturday, it's just not going to work.
It's a comfort to be in a community, but it's very difficult to really believe in God.
That I'm pretty damn sure I was married to that woman, and I know her parents, and that's exactly what they believe, and they're unshakable, and he is a nuclear physicist.
God bless them.
The other thing is why do they talk about it, or why do folks talk about it so much? It'd be nice, yes.
Proselytizing is not
be not like the Pharisee, meaning don't brag about your religion, keep it to yourself. It's right in the Bible, keep it to yourself.
We need to take a quick break. When we come back, I think I'd like to keep this topic going and shift gears, but keep it going, which is I was watching one of my heroes, Kevorkian, on
60 Minutes.
60 Minutes last night. And, they always call it, he helped people commit suicide. If you break that statement down, you can't really help someone commit suicide. Committing suicide is taking your own life. Yeah. If you want to take your own life, you're going to take your own life.
Absolutely.
When you're standing on a ledge, if I push you, I murdered you. If I sit there with my arms folded and you jump, I didn't help you do it. Or even if I yell jump, I didn't help you do it. I don't know that you can help someone commit suicide. I know what they mean when they say it, but I don't think the guy should have spent 8 years in prison for what he did.
There's a Good Samaritan law that says you have to help certain people.
Yeah.
But in my interpretation of Kevorkian, he did.
He was contacted by the people. His family, their families were desperate. These people were shells of their former self and worried that they would choke on their own saliva. Could you imagine? And he assisted them. Anyway, the idea that we spent millions of dollars prosecuting this guy and that he spent 8 years. The guy's a doctor, for Christ's sake. I mean, the idea that just a guy with that kind of education should rot in prison throughout his 70s, and we should have to pay for this guy with this much education to rot over there, who does not pose any meaningful threat to society, is ludicrous to this atheist. But I want to hear what you have to say, and we'll break down the game film next on the Adam Carolla Show.
866-901-ADAM. This is William Shatner on the Adam Carolla Show.